Everyone in the Shadow Pine pack thought I was broken, a defect, an Omega who couldn't shift, couldn't fight, and barely spoke. They pitied me. But pity is better than death, because if they knew what I really was, they wouldn't just kill me, they would hunt me for sport. For 7 years, I've been swallowing illegal suppressants that burn my throat just to hide the most dangerous secret in the werewolf world. I am not a defect. I am the last white wolf. And the alpha who just returned to claim the pack. He's the man sworn to wipe my kind off the face of the earth. My name is Kaya Sterling, and this is how my lie fell apart. The bathroom mirror at the gas station off Route 9 was cracked, splitting Kaya Sterling's reflection into jagged shards. It was fitting, she thought. She hadn't felt whole in 7 years. She turned the tap, the water running cold and rusty, reaching into the pocket of her oversized, fraying hoodie. She pulled out a small, unmarked orange pill bottle. There was only one pill left. A wave of panic, cold and sharp, spiked in her chest. She stared at the pill, a chalky, bitter tablet she bought from a dealer named Silas, down in the grim industrial district of Oakhaven. He called them the Fog. To the rest of the world, they were high-grade suppressants meant for unstable wolves. To Kaya, they were survival. She swallowed it dry, grimacing as the chemical taste coated her tongue. Almost instantly, the low, thrumming power beneath her skin, the urge to run, to howl, to dominate de-dulled into a manageable ache. Her scent, naturally the scent of fresh snow and ozone, faded back into the bland, barely there sweetness of a submissive Omega. 7 years, she whispered to the broken mirror. Just keep your head down. Kaya Sterling was 24 years old, to the members of the Shadow Pine pack. She was a nobody. She worked in the pack house kitchens, scrubbing grease off industrial pans, and lived in the run-down servants' quarters on the edge of the territory. They knew her as the runt, the Omega who couldn't shift, the girl who flinched when a beta raised his voice. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar, if they knew the truth. The Shadow Pine pack would be a bloodbath by sundown. Kaya wasn't an Omega. She was a white wolf, a lineage of pure-blooded alphas characterized by their massive size, white fur, and ability to command other wolves through sheer will, regardless of rank. But white wolves were myths now, ghost stories told to pups. They had been hunted to extinction 20 years ago during the Great Purge, led by the Blackwood family. And that was the problem. The Shadow Pine pack was Blackwood territory. Kaya exited the gas station and walked back toward the packlands, the gravel crunching under her worn sneakers. The Oregon mist clung to her hair. She checked her watch. She was late for the evening shift. As she crossed the perimeter line, the magical ward rippled over her skin. Usually, it ignored her. Omegas were considered non-threats. But today, the ward felt heavier, like a physical weight pressing down on her shoulders. Something had changed. She hurried toward the massive stone estate that served as the pack house, keeping her head lowered. The courtyard was buzzing with frantic energy. Betas were running drills, shouting commands. Omegas were scrubbing the stone steps until their hands were raw. Kaya tried to slip through the side entrance near the scullery, but a heavy hand landed on her shoulder. She froze. It was Jareth, the pack beta. He was a cruel man, with a scar running through his left eyebrow and a reputation for enjoying the sound of his own voice. "Where have you been? Runt!" Jareth sneered, spinning her around. Kaya forced her posture to slump. She widened her eyes, injecting fear into her gaze, a look she had perfected. I was just getting supplies. Beta Jareth. For the kitchens. Jareth sniffed the air around her. Kaya held her breath. The pill she just took should be working. But the fear was real. If the fog hadn't kicked in yet, he would smell the ozone. He would smell the alpha blood. "You smell like gasoline and cheap soap," Jareth muttered, shoving her back. "Get inside. The alpha is returning tonight." Kaya's heart stopped. Returning. "Alpha Lachlan," Jareth said, his eyes gleaming with a mix of reverence and fear. "He's finished the border wars in the north. He's coming home to take his father's place, and he's demanding a full pack inspection upon arrival." Kaya felt the blood drain from her face. Alpha Lachlan Blackwood, the butcher of the north, the man who had reportedly killed 3 rogues with his bare hands in a single night. He was the son of the man who ordered the Great Purge. If Jareth was a bully, Lachlan was a predator. A beta might be fooled by scent blockers, but an alpha of Lachlan's caliber, he would taste the lie in the air. "Move," Jareth barked. Kaya scrambled into the kitchen, her mind racing. A full inspection meant every wolf, from the highest beta to the lowest omega, had to present themselves to the alpha. He would check their health, their loyalty, and their rank. She had to leave. She had to run. But where the northern borders were closed, and without money or a car, she wouldn't make it past the human towns before the Blackwood trackers caught her. Kaya, the head cook, a kindly but frazzled woman named Martha, shoved a tray of hors d'oeuvres into her hands. "Don't just stand there shaking. Take these to the Grand Hall. The Alpha's convoy is 5 minutes away." "I can't," Kaya whispered, her hands trembling. "Martha, please, I can't be in the hall." Martha paused, looking at Kaya with maternal concern. She assumed Kaya was terrified of the Alpha's reputation. "Oh, honey, just stay in the back shadows. He won't even look at you. To men like him, girls like us are just furniture. Now go." Kaya looked at the tray, then at the door. She was trapped. She took a deep breath, pushing the wolf inside her deep, deep down. "Sleep," she commanded it. "Be small. Be nothing." She walked into the Grand Hall. The room was magnificent, adorned with banners of dark green and black. The elite of the pack stood in rows, dressed in their finest. Kaya hugged the wall, moving toward the back service tables. She made herself as invisible as possible, keeping her eyes fixed on the floor. Then, the heavy oak doors boomed open. The silence that fell over the room was suffocating. The sound of heavy boots echoed on the marble floor. Kaya didn't look up, but she felt him. It was like the air pressure in the room suddenly dropped. A wave of power rolled off the man entering the room, dark and suffocating like smoke. It was pure alpha dominance, so potent that several omegas near the front whimpered and dropped to their knees. Kaya's inner wolf, usually dormant under the drugs, twitched. It didn't want to kneel. It wanted to snarl. No, Kaya thought, biting the inside of her cheek until she tasted copper. "Stay down." "Welcome home, Alpha Lachlan," Jareth's voice rang out, overly smooth. "Skip the pleasantries. Jareth." The voice was a low baritone, rough like gravel grinding against steel. It sent a shiver down Kaya's spine that had nothing to do with fear. "Line them up," Lachlan commanded. "I want to see what has become of my pack while I was away." Kaya shrank behind a large decorative fern, praying to every deity she knew. She watched through the leaves as he walked down the line. Lachlan Blackwood was terrifyingly beautiful. He stood well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that strained against his black tactical shirt. His hair was dark, almost black, and his eyes. Kaya gasped softly. His eyes were the color of molten gold. He moved with a lethal grace, stopping in front of his warriors, critiquing them, dismissing them. He was efficient, cold. He was getting closer to the service staff. Kaya's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Thump, thump, thump. It was so loud she was sure he could hear it. Lachlan stopped 10 feet away. He paused. He tilted his head, his nostrils flaring slightly. The room went deadly silent. "Jareth," Lachlan said, his voice dropping an octave. "Yes, Alpha. Why does this room smell like—" Lachlan frowned, searching for the word. "Snow." Kaya stopped breathing. The silence in the grand hall stretched, taut as a bowstring. "Snow, Alpha?" Jareth asked, laughing nervously. "It's mid-July. Perhaps the air conditioning is." "I know what winter smells like." "Jareth," Lachlan snapped, not taking his eyes off the back of the room. His golden gaze swept over the crowd, bypassing the bowing betas and landing squarely on the shadowed corner where the service staff stood. Kaya gripped the silver tray so hard her knuckles turned white. The drug, the fog. It had to work. She had taken it less than an hour ago. But Lachlan was a prime Alpha. His senses were sharper than anyone she had ever encountered. He began to walk toward the kitchen staff. The crowd parted for him like water. Every step he took echoed with authority. Kaya stared at his boots, heavy combat style, caked with dry mud. He stopped directly in front of Martha. Martha was trembling. "Alpha," she squeaked, curtsying clumsily. Lachlan ignored her. He stepped past her, toward the fern, toward Kaya. She had nowhere to go. Her back was against the cold stone wall. She kept her head bowed, her chin tucked to her chest. Hiding her face behind a curtain of mousy brown hair, she deliberately kept unwashed and messy. "You," Lachlan said. The single word hung in the air. Kaya didn't move. "Look at me when I address you," he commanded. The Alpha tone was woven into his voice, a compulsion that forced obedience. Kaya's body betrayed her. Against her will, her chin lifted. She met his eyes. For a second, the world narrowed down to just the two of them. Lachlan's eyes widened slightly. He was expecting another cowering servant. What he saw was Kaya, even with the disguise, the baggy clothes, the dirt, the slumped posture. There was a fire in her violet eyes that she couldn't fully extinguish. He stepped closer, invading her personal space. He lowered his head to the crook of her neck and inhaled deeply. Kaya squeezed her eyes shut. "Please let him smell the soap. Just the soap." Lachlan pulled back, a look of confusion crossing his stoic features. "You smell muted," he murmured, almost to himself. "Like a static channel on a radio." He looked at her name tag, pinned crookedly to her apron. "Kaya." "Yes, Alpha," she whispered, her voice raspy. "Rank, Omega, Alpha." Lachlan studied her face, his gaze tracing the line of her jaw, the smudge of dirt on her cheek. "You don't look like an Omega, Kaya. You hold my gaze too long." I apologize," she stammered, dropping her eyes immediately. I'm stupid, sir. I don't know the proper ways. I just wash the dishes." Jareth stepped up behind Lachlan. "She's the runt. Alpha. A bit slow in the head. Can't even shift. Waste of rations, if you ask me. But your father had a soft spot for strays." Lachlan's jaw tightened. He looked at Kaya one last time, a flicker of suspicion still burning in his gold eyes. But the scent was gone. The snow he had smelled earlier was masked by the overwhelming scent of Jareth's cheap cologne and the fear permeating the room. "Get her out of my sight," Lachlan said abruptly, turning his back on her. "She reeks of fear. It's distracting." Kaya didn't need to be told twice. She scrambled backward, nearly dropping the tray, and bolted for the kitchen door. She didn't stop running until she reached the sanctuary of the scullery. She collapsed against the industrial sink, gasping for air, her legs turning to jelly. She was safe. For now. Later that night, the pack celebrated. Music thumped through the floorboards of the servants' quarters, but Kaya lay awake on her thin mattress, staring at the water-stained ceiling. She needed more pills. The encounter with Lachlan had burned through her system faster than usual. Stress metabolized the suppressants. If she had to face him again tomorrow, she needed a double dose. She checked her stash. Empty. "Damn it!" she hissed. She had to go see Silas. Tonight. Silas operated out of a repurposed shipping container behind a dive bar called the Rusty Hook in Oak Haven. It was technically neutral territory, but it was crawling with rogues and exiles. Kaya pulled on a black beanie and a dark coat. She slipped out of her window, moving silently through the shadows. This was the one advantage of being the invisible Omega. No one watched the servants' quarters. She hiked 3 miles to the town border, then hitched a ride with a passing trucker who didn't ask questions. By the time she reached the Rusty Hook, it was past midnight. The air smelled of stale beer and diesel. Kaya kept her head down, navigating the alleyway to the back. She knocked on the metal container door 3 rapid taps. A pause, then 2 more. The door creaked open. Silas stood there. He was a weasel of a man, a coyote shifter who had been kicked out of his pack for theft. "Kaya," he grinned, revealing yellowed teeth. "Running low on the candy. I need a refill. Silas, 2 months' worth." She pulled a wad of crumpled cash from her pocket tips she had stolen from the laundry over the last year. Silas snatched the money but didn't move to get the pills. He leaned against the doorframe, picking his nails with a knife. Price went up. "Sweetheart," he drawled. "What?" Kaya stepped forward. "We had a deal. This is everything I have." "Supply chain issues." Silas shrugged. "Plus, I hear Alpha Lachlan is back. Security is tight. High risk. High reward." "Silas, please," Kaya said, desperation leaking into her voice. "I need them. Tonight. I can give you 1 week's worth for that." He gestured to the cash. "Or," he looked her up and down, his eyes lingering on her lips, "you can pay another way." A low growl vibrated in Kaya's chest before she could stop it. It was deep, guttural, and distinctly Alpha. Silas froze. He looked at her, his eyes narrowing. That didn't sound like an Omega. Kaya realized her mistake instantly. The stress, the lack of pills. Her control was slipping. "Just give me the pills, Silas," she said, her voice hard. Silas laughed, but it was nervous. "You know, I've always wondered about you. A pretty girl, hiding in the kitchen, buying industrial strength blockers. Who are you running from?" "Kaya." He reached out to grab her arm. Kaya's instincts took over. She didn't think, she reacted. She grabbed his wrist, twisted it with a sickening crack, and slammed him face first into the metal wall of the container. "Ah!" Silas screamed. "The pills!" Kaya snarled, pressing her forearm against his windpipe. "Now! Okay, under the floorboard. Take them!" Kaya released him, shoving him to the ground. She ripped up the loose floorboard, grabbed 3 bottles of the orange pills, and shoved them into her pockets. She turned to leave, but stopped. Silas was clutching his broken wrist, staring at her with wide, terrified eyes. Your eyes, he stammered. Kaya caught her reflection in the dark window of the container. Her violet eyes were glowing, not the soft amber of a normal wolf. They were glowing a brilliant, blinding white. "You're a white wolf," Silas whispered. "Holy Kaya's blood ran cold. He knew. If Silas talked, she was dead. She took a step toward him, her hand raising to strike, to silence him permanently. But she stopped. She wasn't a murderer, not like the Blackwoods. "If you tell anyone," Kaya said, her voice dropping to a terrifying whisper, "I won't just break your wrist. I will tear your throat out." She turned and ran into the night. But she didn't see the figure standing on the roof of the adjacent warehouse, a figure shrouded in black, watching through thermal binoculars. "Target identified," the figure spoke into a radio. "Possible anomaly at Sector 4. Female. She just took down a coyote male in 2 seconds." On the other end of the line, sitting in his office at the pack house, Alpha Lachlan Blackwood frowned at the radio on his desk. "Bring her in," Lachlan commanded. "I want to know who is beating up dealers in my town." "She's moving fast, Alpha. She's heading back toward..." "The pack lands." Lachlan stood up, walking to the window. "Toward us." "Yes, sir." Lachlan's eyes narrowed. "Don't intercept her. Let her come. Follow her. I want to see exactly where she goes." Kaya ran through the woods, clutching the pills, thinking she had survived another night. She didn't know she was leading the wolf right to her door. The dawn broke over the Shadow Pine estate like a bruise, purple and grey bleeding into the sky. Kaya hadn't slept. She had spent the hours between her return and sunrise scrubbing her sneakers with a toothbrush and burying the 3 bottles of pills inside a hollowed-out vent behind her bed. She was exhausted. Her body ached from the adrenaline crash, and the suppressants were working overtime, making her limbs feel like lead. "Up, everyone, up!" Jareth's voice boomed through the hallway of the servants' quarters, accompanied by the banging of a baton against the hollow wooden doors. "General assembly in the courtyard. 5 minutes." Kaya groaned, rolling out of her cot. She pulled on her oversized grey uniform, purposefully skipping the shower to maintain her unkempt appearance. She rubbed a little ash from the fireplace onto her neck to mask any lingering scent of the fresh night air. When she stumbled into the courtyard, the atmosphere was tense. It wasn't just the kitchen staff this time. It was everyone. Gardeners, cleaners, maintenance crew, and standing on the raised stone dais, looking like a god of war in a crisp black button-down and dark jeans, was Alpha Lachlan. Beside him stood a man Kaya didn't recognize, a tracker, judging by the mud-caked boots and the scoped rifle slung over his shoulder. "Last night," Lachlan began, his voice carrying without a microphone, "there was an incident in Oakhaven. A drug dealer was assaulted, robbed." Kaya's heart hammered against her ribs. "Stay calm. He's fishing. Usually, I wouldn't care about the misfortune of a rodent like Silas." Lachlan continued, his golden eyes scanning the crowd. "But my scouts tell me the assailant fled into these woods, into my territory." He stepped down from the dais, walking slowly along the line of shivering servants. The assailant was female, fast, strong, and she disappeared right near the perimeter of these quarters. Kaya dug her fingernails into her palms. The pain helped ground her. Lachlan stopped in front of a young gardener named Toby. "Show me your hands," he commanded. Toby, shaking, held them out. "Clean." Lachlan moved on, He was looking for bruised knuckles. Kaya realized with a jolt of panic that her right hand was swollen from where she had punched Silas. She quickly tucked her hands into the deep pockets of her apron. Lachlan moved down the line, efficient and terrifying. He was 10 feet away. 5. Then Jareth stepped forward. Alpha, surely none of these runts could take down a coyote. It must have been a rogue passing through. I don't like coincidences. Jareth, Lachlan murmured. He stopped in front of Kaya. For the second time in 24 hours, the Alpha was in her personal space. The scent of him, cedar, rain, and raw power was overwhelming. It made her inner wolf want to bare its throat and snap its jaws at the same time. You, Lachlan said softly. Kaya kept her eyes on his boots. Yes, Alpha, you look tired. I didn't sleep well, sir. The storm. Lachlan hummed, a low vibration in his chest. Take your hands out of your pockets. Kaya froze. If she showed him her hand, it was over. The swelling was undeniable. I said, his voice hardened, hands. Kaya took a breath. She pulled her hands out, but as she did, she deliberately tripped over her own shoelace, stumbling forward. The tray of water cups on the table next to her went flying. Splash! Ice water soaked Lachlan's expensive boots and the hem of his jeans. The courtyard went deathly silent. Jareth gasped. You clumsy little... Kaya dropped to her knees, frantically using her apron to dab at Lachlan's boots. I'm so sorry I'm so clumsy. I tripped, please forgive me. Alpha. She kept her hands moving fast, covered in the wet fabric of the apron, hiding the bruise in the chaotic motion. Get away from him, Jareth roared, raising his hand to strike her. Enough, Lachlan said. He didn't sound angry. He sounded amused. He looked down at Kaya, who was cowering at his feet. He saw the performance. He saw the terror. But his sharp eyes also caught something else, the way she had moved to spill the water. It hadn't been a stumble. It had been calculated. Precise. Jareth, Lachlan said, stepping back. I need a new personal attendant for the Alpha floor. The previous one was, let's say, compromised. I'll find you the best from the beta females, sir, Jareth said quickly. No, Lachlan said, his eyes fixed on Kaya. I want her. Kaya's head snapped up. Me. You. Lachlan nodded. You're invisible. Clumsy. Unremarkable. You won't be spying for my enemies because you clearly barely know which way is up. Pack your things. You move into the main house in an hour. Kaya felt the blood drain from her face. Moving into the main house meant living 20 feet down the hall from the Alpha. It meant high-definition surveillance. It meant no way to sneak out. Sir, Kaya stammered, I really think I'm better suited for the scullery. Is that a refusal? Lachlan asked, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. No. Alpha, Kaya whispered, defeated. Thank you for the honor. Good. Lachlan turned and walked away. And Kaya, ice your hand. It looks swollen. Kaya stopped breathing as he walked away. He knew. The Alpha suite was less of a room and more of a fortress. Located on the top floor of the pack house, it had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the dense Oregon forest, a fireplace big enough to roast a deer, and a mahogany desk buried under stacks of tactical maps. Kaya stood by the door, clutching a silver coffee pot. She was wearing the new uniform Jareth had thrown at her, a crisp black dress with a white apron that fit much tighter than her kitchen rags. It made her feel exposed. Coffee, Lachlan said without looking up from his paperwork. Kaya walked forward, her steps silent on the plush Persian rug. She poured the coffee into his mug. Black. No sugar. "You move quietly for a clumsy girl," Lachlan commented, picking up a pen. "I try not to be in the way, sir. Is that why you live your life with your head down to stay out of the way?" He looked up then, his golden eyes piercing. "It's the safest place to be," Kaya replied honestly. Lachlan leaned back in his leather chair. "Safe is boring. And I don't think you're boring. Kaya, I checked your file. Orphaned at 17. Parents killed in a rogue attack near the border. No medical history. No shifting record. You're a ghost. I'm just a nobody. Alpha. We'll see." He gestured to the papers on his desk. "Do you know what these are?" Kaya glanced down. Her breath hitched. They were satellite images of the northern mountain range, thermal imaging scans. "They look like maps, sir." "They are hunting grounds," Lachlan said, his voice cold. "For white wolves." Kaya's hand trembled, the coffee pot rattling slightly against the saucer. She steadied it instantly, but Lachlan noticed. "You know the legends, don't you?" he asked. "The white wolves, the purebloods. My father hunted them to extinction. Or so he thought." "Why?" Kaya cleared her throat. "Why do you hunt them? Alpha, if they're all gone." Lachlan stood up and walked to the window, his back to her. "Because one of them killed my mother." Kaya stared at his broad back. "That wasn't in the stories. The stories said the Blackwoods killed the white wolves out of jealousy, out of a desire for absolute power." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be. I'm going to finish the job." He turned around. "But that's not why you're here. I have a meeting in 10 minutes with Alpha Damon of the Iron River Pack. He's difficult. I need you to serve drinks. And I need you to be invisible. Can you do that?" "Yes, Alpha." Alpha Damon was a brute of a man. He wore a leather jacket that creaked when he moved and smelled of stale cigar smoke and aggressive musk. He sat on Lachlan's leather sofa, man-spreading, while 2 of his enforcers stood by the door. "You're squeezing my territory, Lachlan," Damon spat, accepting the whiskey glass Kaya offered him without even looking at her. "Your patrols are crossing the river." "My patrols go where the rogues go," Lachlan said calmly, sipping his coffee. "If you can't control the perimeter, I will." "You think just because you're a Blackwood, you own the state," Damon snarled. He stood up, slamming his glass down on the coffee table. The glass shattered. Kaya flinched but didn't move away. She began to pick up the shards. "Leave it!" Damon barked at her. He looked at Lachlan. "You disrespect me, boy. You send this Omega to clean up while I'm talking." "She's doing her job, Damon. Something you should try." Damon's face turned purple. "I ought to teach you some manners." Damon didn't lunge at Lachlan. He lunged at Kaya. It was a cowardly move, a classic bully tactic to hurt the weakest thing in the room to prove a point. Damon's heavy hand swung out, aiming a backhand slap that would have snapped a normal human's neck and shattered an Omega's jaw. Time seemed to slow down for Kaya. She saw the trajectory of the hand. She saw the smirk on Damon's face. She saw Lachlan starting to rise, but he was too far away to stop the blow. If she took the hit, she would be hospitalized, maybe killed. If she dodged, she revealed her reflexes. Instinct won. Kaya didn't just dodge. She ducked under the swing with a speed that blurred the air. As she came up, she didn't think she shoved Damon in the chest to create distance. It should have been a light push, but Kaya was a white wolf, and the adrenaline had spiked her strength. Damon, a 250-pound alpha male, flew backward as if he'd been hit by a truck. He crashed into the opposite wall, cracking the plaster, and crumpled to the floor, wheezing. The room went dead silent. The two enforcers stared. Lachlan stared. Kaya stood in the middle of the room, her hand still outstretched, her chest heaving. Oh no! Damon groaned, rolling over, clutching his chest. She broke my ribs. Lachlan looked at Damon, then at Kaya. His face was unreadable, a mask of stone. But his eyes were burning with a terrifying realization. "Get out," Lachlan said to Damon's men. "She attacked an alpha," one of the enforcers shouted. "I said get out." Lachlan's voice was a thunderclap, engaging his alpha command. The enforcers grabbed the groaning Damon and dragged him out the door, terrified of Lachlan's aura. When the door clicked shut, they were alone. Kaya was trembling violently now. She backed away until she hit the desk. "Alpha, I didn't mean to. He startled me, and I just..." Lachlan walked toward her. He didn't stop until he was inches away. He reached out and grabbed her chin, tilting her head up. "No Omega can throw a full-grown alpha across a room. Kaya," he whispered. He looked deep into her eyes. Kaya tried to look away, but she couldn't, and then she felt it. The compulsion. Not just a command, but a probe. He was pushing his will against hers, trying to force her wolf to surface. "What are you?" he demanded. Kaya gritted her teeth, her mental walls slamming down. The fog pills were weakening, but they were still there. "I am your servant." "Liar." Lachlan's hand slid down to her throat, resting over her pulse. "Your heart is beating too slow for fear. You're not scared of me. You're scared of what I'll see." Suddenly, the intercom on his desk buzzed. "Alpha." It was Jareth. "We have a situation at the gate. We found him. The dealer. Silas. He claims he has information about the ghost you're looking for. He says he wants to make a deal." Kaya stopped breathing. Lachlan didn't take his eyes off her. He smiled, a cold, predatory smile. "Bring him up," Lachlan said into the intercom, never breaking eye contact with Kaya. "Let's see what he has to say." He released her. "Don't leave the room. Kaya, pour us another round. I have a feeling I'm going to need a drink for this." Kaya stood frozen as the elevator chimed down the hall. Silas was coming, and he was going to sell her out to the man who wanted to mount her head on a wall. She looked at the window. It was a 4-story drop. She looked at the door. Guards. She was trapped, and the monster was walking in. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime that sounded like a funeral bell to Kaya. 2 guards dragged Silas into the room. He looked worse than he had the night before. His face was a map of bruises, his left eye swollen shut, and he reeked of fear and stale liquor. Lachlan didn't stand up. He remained leaning against his desk, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "So," he said, his voice deceptively light, "this is the man who claims to know the identity of my mystery assailant." Silas's good eye darted around the room until it landed on Kaya. She stood by the fireplace, hands clasped in front of her apron, staring at the floor. She made herself small, trembling. A terrified servant girl witnessing pack business she had no right to see. "Her!" Silas shrieked, pointing a shaking finger. "That's her! That's the witch!" Kaya gasped, taking a step back, her hand flying to her mouth. "Me, I don't know this man. Alpha." Lachlan looked from the trembling girl to the raving drug dealer. He took a slow sip of his whiskey. "Silas, you're telling me that this girl, my kitchen Omega, is the one who broke your wrist and threw you into a wall. She's not an Omega, Silas spat, struggling against the guard's grip. She's a monster. She came to me for pills, the fog, high-grade suppressants, and when I tried to squeeze her for cash, she nearly killed me. Suppressants, Lachlan repeated. He turned his gaze to Kaya. It was a physical weight. Do you take suppressants? Kaya. No, sir, Kaya whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I'm barely strong enough to scrub floors. Why would I need suppressants I can't even shift? She's lying, Silas screamed. Look at her eyes. I saw them glow. Not yellow, not gold. White. She's a white wolf. Lachlan, the last one. The room went dead silent. Lachlan stared at Silas for a long moment. Then, a low, dark chuckle rumbled in his chest. A white wolf, Lachlan said, shaking his head. Silas, if you're going to lie to save your skin, at least make it believable. My father hunted the last white wolf 20 years ago. Skinned him alive. They are dust. I saw it, Silas insisted, frothing at the mouth. Check her room. Check her pockets. Lachlan's expression hardened. Kaya, come here. Kaya walked forward, her legs shaking partially an act, partially genuine terror. If he checked the vent in her room, she was dead. Lachlan reached out and grabbed her apron. He patted the pockets. Empty. He checked the pockets of her dress. Empty. He looked at Silas. She's clean. She hid them. Silas roared. He broke free from the guards with a surge of desperate, chemically fueled strength. He pulled a concealed switchblade from his boot and lunged at Kaya. I'll cut the truth out of her. Kaya saw the blade coming. Her instincts screamed. Block, strike, kill. But if she moved, she revealed herself. If she didn't move, she died. She froze, squeezing her eyes shut, bracing for the steel. Thud. The impact never came. Kaya opened her eyes. Lachlan was standing in front of her. He had caught Silas's wrist in mid-air, inches from Kaya's face. Lachlan's back was to her, a wall of black muscle. You attack a member of my household, Lachlan snarled, his voice vibrating with alpha power. In front of me, snap. Lachlan broke Silas's wrist with a casual flick of his hand. Silas screamed, dropping the knife. Lachlan didn't stop. He grabbed Silas by the throat and lifted him off the ground. You're a liar, a dealer, and a nuisance, and you bored me with fairy tales about ghosts. Wait, Silas choked out, his face turning purple. Her scent. Ozone. Lachlan tightened his grip. Goodbye. Silas. With a sickening crunch, he crushed Silas's windpipe. He dropped the body to the floor like a sack of trash. Kaya clapped her hands over her mouth to stifle a scream. This was the monster everyone feared. Efficient. Brutal. Lachlan pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped his hand. Get this filth out of here, he ordered the guards. As they dragged the body away, Lachlan turned to Kaya. She was shaking violently now. This wasn't acting. She had just watched a man die because of her secret. Lachlan studied her. He stepped closer, stepping over the spot where Silas had died. He reached out and brushed a stray tear from her cheek with his thumb. You're trembling, he murmured. He had a knife, Kaya whispered. He was insane, Lachlan said firmly. White wolves don't exist. Kaya, he was hallucinating. Yes, Alpha, but, Lachlan added, his thumb lingering on her jawline. He was right about one thing. Kaya's breath hitched. Sir, you don't smell like an Omega right now, Lachlan whispered, leaning down so his lips brushed her ear. "You smell like ozone, like a storm is coming." He pulled back, his golden eyes searching hers. "Go to your room. Kaya, lock the door. We leave at dawn." "Leave? Where are we going?" "To the northern border," Lachlan said. "If there really are rogues or ghosts out there, I'm going to find them, and you're coming with me." "Why me?" Lachlan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Because, Kaya, I want to see what happens when I put a terrified little mouse in a cage with the lions." The northern border of the Shadow Pine territory was a desolate landscape of jagged rocks and ancient pine trees that scraped the grey sky. It was cold here, a bone-deep chill that bit through Kaya's thin coat. They had been driving for 3 hours in Lachlan's armoured SUV. Kaya sat in the passenger seat. Silent. Lachlan drove with one hand on the wheel, his eyes scanning the tree line. "You're quiet," Lachlan said. "I'm cold." Kaya replied. It was half true. The other half was that her suppressants were wearing off again. The stress of the last 24 hours was metabolizing the drug too fast. She could feel her hearing sharpening. She could hear the heartbeat of a deer a mile into the woods. Lachlan reached into the back seat and tossed her a heavy, fur-lined jacket. It smelled like him. Cedar and musk. "Put it on, if you freeze to death. Jareth will say I'm mistreating the help." Kaya pulled the jacket on. It engulfed her, but the warmth was instant. "Thank you." They stopped at a clearing near the base of a cliff. This was the dead zone, the place where the GPS signal died and the wild territory began. "We walk from here," Lachlan said, checking the magazine of his handgun. "Alpha," Kaya said. Hesitation in her voice. "Why did you really bring me? I can't fight. I can't track. I'm a liability." Lachlan stopped. He looked at her, the wind whipping his dark hair. "Silas said you smelled like ozone. Do you know what else smells like ozone?" Kaya shook her head. "Magic," Lachlan said. "Old magic. The kind that hasn't been seen since the Great Purge." He stepped closer. "I don't think you're a white wolf." "Kaya, that's impossible. But I think you're something. A witch. A half-breed I intend to find out." He drew a silver knife from his belt. Kaya took a step back. "What are you doing?" "A test." Lachlan slashed the palm of his own hand. Blood welled up, dark and rich. Then, before Kaya could react, he reached out and grabbed her hand. "Alpha, no!" He sliced her palm. A quick, shallow cut. "Ah," Kaya hissed, pulling her hand back. "Silver burns wolves," Lachlan said, watching her wound closely. "It slows healing. But the legends say white wolves are immune to silver poisoning. Their blood is too pure." Kaya stared at her hand. The cut was stinging, burning like fire. Good. That meant she was reacting like a normal wolf, or at least close enough. She focused on the pain, willing her body not to heal. "Don't heal. Stay open. Bleed." A drop of red blood fell onto the snow. Lachlan watched it. He watched the wound. It stayed open. It bled. He let out a breath, looking almost disappointed. "It's not healing. You're just a wolf." "I told you," Kaya said, clutching her hand. "I'm just Kaya." Lachlan sheathed the knife. He looked at her, his expression softening slightly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a bandage. He wrapped her hand himself, his movements surprisingly gentle. "I had to know," he said quietly. "You could have just asked," Kaya muttered. "I don't trust words. I trust blood." Suddenly, Kaya's head snapped up. She heard it, the snap of a twig, the rustle of fur against bark. Not 1. 6. No. 8. Alpha, she whispered. I hear them, Lachlan said, his voice instantly shifting to command mode. Get behind me. From the shadows of the trees, they emerged, rogues. They were massive, mangy wolves with matted fur and crazed eyes. They weren't shifting fully. They were in that grotesque half-state, standing on hind legs, claws elongated, drool dripping from their jaws. Well, well, a voice rasped. A man stepped out from behind the pack. He was human, but his eyes were black pits. A rogue sorcerer. The Prince of Shadow Pine, and he brought a snack. Lachlan pushed Kaya toward the cliff wall. Stay down. 8 against 1, the sorcerer sneered. Hardly fair. I agree, Lachlan said, his eyes glowing gold. You should have brought more. Lachlan shifted. It was a violent, beautiful explosion of motion. 1 second he was a man. The next he was a massive midnight black wolf, standing nearly 7 feet tall at the shoulder. He roared, a sound that shook the snow from the trees, and launched himself at the rogues. The fight was brutal. Lachlan tore through the first 2 rogues like they were paper. But there were too many. And the sorcerer was chanting, throwing bolts of dark energy that singed Lachlan's fur. Kaya pressed herself against the rock. She watched as a rogue latched onto Lachlan's flank. Another bit his hind leg. Lachlan snarled, snapping his jaws, but he was being overwhelmed. The sorcerer pulled a jagged spear from his back. It was tipped with wolfsbane and coated in a glowing green poison. He aimed it at Lachlan's exposed chest. Die, Blackwood, the sorcerer shouted, pulling his arm back to throw. Lachlan was pinned by 3 wolves. He couldn't dodge. Kaya's world narrowed to a single point. If she did nothing, he died. If she acted, her life as she knew it was over. It wasn't a choice. Kaya didn't shift. She didn't have time. She let the white wolf power surge into her human form. She screamed, not a scream of fear, but a command. Stop! The voice wasn't human. It was the voice of the Alpha of Alphas. It carried a physical shockwave. The rogues froze. Even Lachlan froze. The sorcerer stumbled, dropping the spear. Kaya sprinted. She moved faster than the eye could follow. She snatched the poisoned spear from the ground and, in one fluid motion, drove it through the sorcerer's chest. He gasped, looking down at the girl holding the spear. You! He gurgled. White! Kaya ripped the spear out. The sorcerer collapsed, dead. She spun around to face the rogues. Her eyes were no longer violet. They were blazing, blinding white. She bared her teeth at the 6 remaining wolves. Leave! The command hit them like a physical blow, whimpering, tails tucked between their legs. The rogues scrambled over each other to flee into the woods. They didn't care about their master. They only knew that a predator apex was standing before them. Silence descended on the clearing. Kaya stood panting, the bloody spear in her hand. The adrenaline began to fade, and terror washed over her. Slowly, she turned around. Lachlan had shifted back to human form. He was naked from the waist up, bleeding from a dozen bites. But he didn't seem to notice the cold or the pain. He was staring at her. His golden eyes were wide, filled with a mixture of shock, awe, and something darker. Kaya dropped the spear. Her hands shook. She tried to think of a lie, a trick, anything, but her eyes were still glowing. The power was still rolling off her in waves. You, Lachlan whispered. He took a step toward her. You commanded them. Lachlan, please, Kaya begged, her voice cracking. I can explain. You stopped a rogue pack with a single word, he said, stepping closer, cornering her against the cliff. "You moved faster than I did. And your eyes." He reached out, cupping her face with his bloodied hands. "You aren't a defect," he said, his voice rough. "You aren't a nobody." Kaya closed her eyes, waiting for him to snap her neck. He was a Blackwood. This was what they did. They killed white wolves. "Do it," she whispered. "Kill me." Lachlan didn't strike. Instead, he leaned down and pressed his forehead against hers. He inhaled deeply, taking in the scent of ozone and snow that was now pouring off her. Unmasked. "Kill you," Lachlan breathed, his voice thick with a sudden, overwhelming possessiveness. "Kaya, I've been looking for an equal my entire life." He pulled back, looking at her with a hunger that was far more dangerous than his rage. "I'm not going to kill you," he vowed, "but you are going to tell me everything. And then, you are going to be mine." Kaya looked at him, at the blood on his chest and the fire in his eyes. She had saved his life. But in doing so, she had walked straight into the lion's den, and the lion had just decided he wasn't going to let her go. The drive back to the Shadow Pine estate was silent, but the air inside the SUV crackled with an electricity that made the hair on Kaya's arms stand up. Lachlan drove with a new intensity. Every few minutes, his eyes would flick to the passenger seat, checking to see if she was still there, if she was still real. "My father." Lachlan broke the silence as the estate gates came into view. "Told me that white wolves were rabid, uncontrollable beasts that would tear the hierarchy of the packs apart." Kaya looked out the window at the familiar trees she had once viewed as prison bars. "He was afraid," she said softly. "White wolves don't bow to alphas. We can command them. To a man like your father, who needed absolute control. That wasn't a difference of biology. It was a threat to his throne." Lachlan tightened his grip on the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. "And are you a threat to my throne?" "Kaya." Kaya turned to him. The fear was gone. In its place was a calm, steady resolve, born of 7 years of survival. "I don't want a throne, Lachlan. I just want to stop hiding." Lachlan pulled the car up to the front steps of the pack house. He killed the engine and turned to her. "Then don't hide. Not anymore." He got out and walked around to her door, opening it for her. It was a gesture of respect, not servitude. As Kaya stepped out, the front doors of the estate burst open. Jareth marched out, flanked by 10 armed guards. He held a plastic bag in his hand. Inside were the empty bottles of suppressants Kaya had hidden in the vent. "I knew it!" Jareth shouted, his face twisted in triumph. "I knew something was wrong with the little rat. She's been drugging herself to hide her scent." He pointed at Kaya. "Arrest her! She's a spy! A traitor!" The guards hesitated, looking from Jareth to Lachlan. "Stand down," Lachlan said calmly, closing the car door. "Alpha, you can't be serious." Jareth spat, stepping forward. "Look at the evidence. She's been lying to us for years. She's probably working for the rogues by pack law. Deception of this magnitude is punishable by death." Jareth pulled his baton. "If you won't do it, Lachlan, I will. I'll clean up this mess for the good of the pack." He lunged at Kaya. Kaya didn't flinch. She didn't look at Lachlan for help. She didn't need to. She took a single step forward, her chin held high. She let the mask fall completely. The submissive kitchen maid vanished. The runt was gone. She pushed her power outward, not as a whisper, but as a roar. Her eyes flashed that blinding, diamond-white brilliance. "Kneel." The word wasn't spoken. It was detonated. It hit the guards like a physical wave. Instantly, their wolf instincts overrode their conscious minds. Faced with the presence of a white wolf, an apex beyond an alpha, they didn't just hesitate. They dropped. One by one, the guards fell to their knees, heads bowed, whining softly in submission. Jareth froze mid-stride. He fought it. His veins bulged in his neck as he tried to resist the command, his beta instinct screaming at him to submit, while his pride screamed at him to attack. What are you? Jareth gasped, sweat pouring down his face. Kaya walked toward him. She moved with a lethal grace that made Lachlan's heart pound against his ribs. "I am the thing you should have feared," Kaya said, her voice cool and steady. "I am Kaya Sterling, and I am done being your punching bag." She stopped inches from Jareth. The pressure of her aura was crushing him. His knees buckled. He collapsed to the pavement, dropping the baton, panting for air. "You called me a runt," Kaya whispered, looking down at him. "You called me a defect. But look at you, Jareth, bowing to a kitchen maid." Silence reigned over the courtyard. The entire pack had gathered by the windows and on the steps, witnessing the impossible. Then, Lachlan stepped up beside her. He didn't bow. He didn't cower. He stood shoulder to shoulder with her, a wall of dark power next to her blinding light. "Jareth is relieved of his position," Lachlan announced, his voice carrying to the back of the crowd. "Anyone who has a problem with Kaya answers to me, and anyone who questions her lineage answers to her." He looked at Kaya, a challenge and a promise in his golden eyes. "Pack law states that the alpha must take a mate who strengthens the pack," Lachlan said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I can think of no greater strength than the one standing beside me." Kaya's breath hitched. She looked at him. "Lachlan." He took her hand, interlacing their fingers. The contrast, his large, scarred hand against her pale, slender one, was striking. "I spent my life hunting ghosts," Lachlan said to her, ignoring the crowd. "I never realized I was just hunting for the other half of my soul." He raised her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles, the very knuckles she had bruised protecting herself. "Kaya Sterling," Lachlan said, "will you help me rewrite the history of this pack, not as a servant, but as my Luna?" Kaya looked at the man who was supposed to be her executioner. She looked at the pack that had shunned her. She felt the power humming in her veins. Finally free. Finally accepted. She squeezed his hand back. "The history books are going to need a lot of new pages." She smiled, her violet eyes settling into a warm, happy glow. "Yes, Alpha, I will." 3 years later, the Shadow Pine Pack is no longer feared as the home of the Butchers. It is known as the Sanctuary, under the rule of Alpha Lachlan and Luna Kaya. The borders were opened, not to rogues, but to the lost, other wolves who didn't fit the mold Omegas with strange talents. Betas who wanted to paint instead of fight flocked to the territory. Kaya never took another suppressant. She walks the halls of the pack house with her head high. She teaches self-defense to the Omega staff. She ensures that no one, ever again, is called a runt. Lachlan is still feared. Of course, he is still the Alpha who crushed a rebellion in the West and stared down the Council of Elders. But they say the only time the Alpha truly smiles is when he watches his Luna run through the snow, her white coat blending perfectly with the winter landscape. They say white wolves are a myth, a tragedy, a danger, but Kaya Sterling proved them all wrong. She wasn't a danger to the pack. She was its salvation. And as for Jareth, he works in the kitchens now, and rumor has it he's excellent at washing dishes. And that is the incredible story of Kaya Sterling. Can you believe she hid that level of power for 7 years just to survive? It really makes you wonder how many people we overlook every day who are secretly holding on to greatness. I want to know what you would have done in Kaya's shoes. Would you have revealed your powers sooner to stop the bullying, or would you have kept hiding to save your life? Let me know your answer in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of revenge, romance, and hidden identity, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you never miss part 1 of our next drama. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.